Backed by science is one of Gatorade's core tenets, and one of the many ways the Gatorade Sports Science Institute supports the brand. GSSI's headquarter lab, mobile and satellite laboratories, and on-the-field testing enable GSSI to do leading research with the aim of providing athletes with advice and products that help them perform and achieve their goals. GSSI has 4 pillars or 4 key work programs. The GSSI education team produces educational programs and materials for the continuing education of athletes, their influencers, and members of the sports science community. The education team has created a robust library of learning materials, including tips and handouts, posters, e-newsletters, sports science exchange articles, and performance playbooks. The Elite Athlete Service Team is dedicated to working with athletes, teams, and trade partners around the world to support their athletic performance. The team's work includes physical testing, nutrition, sports science consulting, and translation of data. Our innovation team looks to the future and focuses on potential functional ingredients and also new technologies that may enhance our research and service programs, as well as support brand initiatives. GSSI was originally founded as a research group, and the results of the research program have helped drive superior formulations in both product taste and functionality, presented at scientific conferences and published in peer-reviewed journals. GSSI's 4 pillars ensure Gatorade is continually backed by science.
Woo! Hello everyone! Nasa naman yung palakpakan dyan, guys? Come on! My teammates here, thank you very much. And once again, welcome back for this year's GSSI Webinar Series 2022. And let me say this, I'd love to say this. Class is in session again. Woohoo! Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of our friends already checking in, over 100 already. Wow, dami na, no? So thank you guys. I'll do some shout outs later on. But in the meantime, I'd like to ask first, how are you guys doing? Kumusta yung ating first session? How was it? I hope you learned a lot about the science of hydration and nutrition straight from our experts and our guest athletes nung nakaraang unang session natin about 2 weeks ago. Now, for me, no, top of mind, what did I learn from the first session? Number 1, before we go back into sports, it's good that we get ourselves checked by our doctors, diba? And then we take it gradually. Take it gradually, one step at a time, huwag tayo magmadali. But parallel to that, we have to make sure that we are well, our bodies are well. Okay, we eat well, we have our nutrition, we have our hydration, di ba? Of course, Gatorade lang ang kailangan natin dyan, di ba? Apart from water. And we gotta do that before, during, and after. Key takeaways ko yan nung first session. And these were actually validated by our athletes, L.A. Tenorio and Sean Ildefonso, di ba? So, sinabi nila before they became the great athletes that they were, they had to go through the same phase. And yung real talk namin was during the pandemic, just like us, they had to take it slowly to get back into sports. Okay? So, if you want to catch that again, I'm sure no, nasa archive yan ng Gatorade, you can go back and see that again. But for this episode natin, sa ating second class, iba yung pag-uusapan natin. Totally, well, not totally different, but it's still related. All our 4 sessions will be related. But this is very interesting because it will talk more about the youth. But before we dive into the details of our session today, stay with us for about more than an hour. Allow me first to refresh your memories, yung audience natin, on what GSSI is and what this webinar series is all about. So let me show that on our screens. So don't forget that GSI brings the science of hydration and nutrition beyond the lab. Okay, the long-standing mission is really to help athletes and sports enthusiasts optimize their health and performance by bringing sports science beyond the lab. GSSI aims to continuously find innovative ways to spread the science of hydration and nutrition to coaches, kanino pa, nutritionists, athletes, and sports communities the world over. But wait, there's more. So, in an effort to reach more sports enthusiasts despite obvious limitations. Here we are today in the Gatorade Philippines Facebook Live for another GSSI webinar focused on sports and wellness topics led by our scientists, our experts. And of course, later on, we'll have yung pinakaiintay din ninyo, our chat with our guest athletes. And I'm looking at our Facebook live ngayon. No? Ang dami naghihintay dun sa mga athletes natin. Don't worry guys, we'll introduce them later on. Pero may surprise kami. Before we get this show on the road, further on the road, we have Gatorade fans, basketball fans. We have a very special guest who wants to give a shout out sa inyong lahat, to all of you watching us right now. And he is from the NBA. That's right, National Basketball Association, a player of the New Orleans Pelicans. Very young because he anchors his game on defense. Ladies and gentlemen, here to say hello and give a shout out to all of you guys watching. Palakpakan po natin, Herb Jones.
Classes in session, Philippines. This is your classmate, Herb Jones of the New Orleans Pelicans. Welcoming you to the GSSI Webinar Series 2022. I hope you're excited as I am to learn more about the science of hydration and nutrition straight from our sports experts and fellow athletes. Together, let's level up our game, fuel our greatness.
Yan! Di ba? Thank you very much to my very, very close friend, si Herb Jones. I had a good time with him when I met him a couple of weeks back. And may surprise pa kami. But stay with us until the end of our class, of our session today, okay? But I hope na hype po kayo sa kanyang pagbati sa inyo. And just as he said, let's all level up our game and fuel our greatness by learning from our session today. And for this afternoon, we have invited even more pros to inspire everyone on how to jumpstart one's journey to greatness. So, saan ba tayo magfo-focus today? Today, we will focus on the young ones, the next generation. How important is the role of sports in the lives of budding athletes, and how do we, tayo po coaches, mentors, teammates, how can we help fuel the young? Wow, that is so powerful. The youth talaga is so powerful. And this is going to be a very interesting topic, especially for the future of Philippine sports. And in our agenda for today, okay, we will discover how values are formed through sports, which will be discussed by no other than Coach Darren Hartman. And then this session will help us learn about the role of nutrition and hydration in sports as well, both for our young beginners, our young players, okay, our young athletes, and even our pros, which we will hear from our local GSSI consultant, our expert, Professor Molly Malyari. At pagkatapos po niyan, we'll get to have an open discussion with our special guests, our super athletes, our young athletes, professional basketball player, Ricci Rivero, former player ng UAAP, and our guest volleyball player, no other than Miss Ea Laure. And before we end our special session today, our second class for today, gaya ng sinabi ko sa inyo, meron tayong Gatorade exclusive interview with our guest NBA player, Herb Jones from the New Orleans Pelicans. Okay? So, gaya ng first session natin, please don't forget, I have only 3 reminders for you guys. Number 1, this is a two-way conversation. Would like to invite all of you, over 700 na tayo ngayon, no? All of you to send your questions regarding our topics for today by putting in your comments down low, okay, down there. And we would be glad to discuss these during the Q&A and open discussion portion. Isang reminder yan. Second reminder, okay, we will be giving away Gatorade prizes. When I say Gatorade prizes, meron tayong nice squeeze bottle by Gatorade. Meron tayong pair of socks also from Gatorade. We have this nice shirt, the one that I'm wearing as well, only from Gatorade, all placed inside this very nice Gatorade backpack. Alam nyo, napakaganda po ito because when you go on your physical routine, exercise man yan, training yan, you can put all these things inside plus a whole lot more. Okay, so how do you get to win these prizes, all you have to do is participate later on at the end of the show. Towards the end of the show, we'll be flashing 8 questions. So we got 8 winners, and if you answer correctly, okay, paunahan po yan, our trivia questions about the topics for today. So you have to have your papers ready, your pens ready, your listening ears. Bawal yung walang audio. Dapat napapakinggan nyo kami. Take down notes because if you get the answers to the 8 questions, one of the 8 questions, you get to win all these. Okay? So second reminder, but wait, I got one more. The third reminder, if you'd like to receive a certificate of attendance at the end of the show, this certificate I'm talking about, will be flashing a QR code for you to sign up and answer a quick survey. Ito lang yan ha. That QR code will only be available during the live show. So at the end, we're going to flash it and you have to scan that to get that certificate of attendance. If you watch this later on, okay, pag na-upload na sa Facebook, wala na yung QR code. So you lose the chance of getting that certificate of attendance. Okay? So 3 things. Comment, win prizes, scan the QR code at the end to get that certificate of attendance. So stick with us because it's going to be an interesting Class 2, Session 2, as we welcome all of you, not only back into sports, but also as we welcome the youth to be an source of inspiration as we try to stay fit and healthy. Okay, here we go. Our first speaker, allow me to introduce him this way. He is the president and founder of the GOM Football Center for Excellence, where he also served as the GOM football head coach. His team won the Senga Cup. Back-to-back lang naman, ha? And the Pinas Cup, back-to-back. Uy, 3-peat na yon. He was a former player of the Philippine Ascals team. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome Coach Darren Maurice Hartman. Woo! Hello, Coach.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you for the kind introduction too.
So, Coach, before you start your presentation, of course, a lot of people who know you and who'd like to know you more in our show today. How are you doing, Coach, after, over 2 years of being in the lockdown and experiencing this? How is Coach Darren Hartman?
Coach Darren Hartman is fine. I had my 3rd child during the pandemic. I also managed to keep a lot of players active through the online teaching. And of course, we managed to get back face-to-face and training on the field as soon as the regulations allowed. So, I mean, we're picking up momentum again, which is good, just like the whole of Philippine sports.
Nice to hear that, Coach, and congratulations on the newest member of your family. Okay, so Coach, I'm sure our fans, our viewers are excited to find out what you have prepared for all of us. So once again, let's all give a virtual round of applause to our guest coach, Coach Darren Hartman. Coach, take it away.
Okay, well, I've always loved football. I've always loved football. I've loved playing the game and I've loved teaching the game. But it wasn't until I started teaching through values that I really became a coach. And I think that has put me into a position now where I can give this brief talk to you about development through values. Values are really important. We're going to learn about the fundamentals and go into a little bit of depth about it. As you can see on the screen, I mean, as we go through the slides, everyone has, listened to presentations. I don't want to bore you. And of course, that's more about my profession, but just to let you know, Siguro, you can tell from my accent, I'm half English, but my mum was Filipino. So I grew up with values in my home, and I'm now a dad of three young girls. And of course, values plays a big part in every day of my life. And I hope that I have earned the respect of many young football players who have developed and gone on to be professional football players, to say that, I can really talk about values and really talk about the importance of them. Next slide, please. So when we're working with young football players, values is just so important. We built our whole program, in fact, around teaching through values, because at the end of the day, when you're trying to become a professional in any industry, who you are is your values. And that is why when we teach values to our young athletes, we focus on discipline, focus, belief, respect, and trust. Now, these are our core values. Other coaches out there, you may want to focus on different values, but I think you'll find that most of our values will overlap and they're aligned, but it's going to be really up to you to try to grasp a few key words that you can really resonate to your students, to your athletes. Next slide, please. So we focus first on discipline because discipline comes first. So when we talk about discipline, we're going to go into depth about, because coaches, we do have to do better when it comes to discipline, because a young player might come up to you and have a problem which you say is discipline based. And all we're saying is you need to be more disciplined. And I think we need to go into more depth than that. So if you go to the next slide, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. And it's really going to be about making sure that players understand the true value of discipline. The player here on our right, for example, Gabby Basuego, fantastic football player, signed his first pro contract last 2 years ago, and then got an ACL. An ACL to a player at a young age, I believe he was only about 17 years old at the time, can be career changing. But because we managed to get several years, several seasons of teaching the importance of discipline, Gabby managed to get his certificate to train again, I think 2 weeks ago, and managed to have his first professional training session after almost 18 months. And that was all down to discipline. So if we go on to the next slide, I'll tell you exactly what it is that we were talking about. And it's about training your body and your mind into good habits. That's really what discipline is. I mean, we have to really identify what it is. Okay, it is about making sure that we can create the right environment ourselves, in our bodies, in our minds. So when we go to training, we're not worried about anything else apart from actually training. So when the coach says to you, be disciplined, don't be shy to make a little list. It's fine. Make sure that your bag is fixed before you go to training. So if you're a football player, make sure you've got your boots, your socks, your shin pads. Make sure you've got your Gatorade, your hydration, any sort of extras that you need for that slow releases of energy. Prepare it all. And that's going to be the same if you go to school. I mean, you go to school without your pen, your pencil, and your notebooks, you're going to get in trouble. Because when you get into your environment, you should be prepared. And that is what we call about creating good habits. And then that way, when you train, you have a better chance of hitting that optimal performance because you're only having to worry about your training session. Next slide, please. Discipline doesn't just cover preparation. And this is something where sometimes we fall short as coaches. We have to remember that discipline is also about the discipline of recovery. And when you recover, it is not just about making sure that you hydrate, that you replenish. Understanding the timings of that is something which I can teach, but there are experts. But it's also about making sure that mentally you get the opportunity to reflect. Reflecting is a really important discipline to have. You need to know what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. And then just slowly over the years of training, it's a multiple effect. And that's the discipline. It's not just about the preparation to training. It's also about what you do after the training. That's the discipline of recovery. Now, of course, life skills and values overlap all the time. And balancing time is a very important discipline to have. And of course, studying and balancing your sports is something which we have to do. But even when you get older, you have to balance your work, your family, your friendship circles. It's something we're doing constantly. And as coaches, as people in our field, we are in a very important position to mentor this, the importance of balancing time as a discipline. Next slide, please. Now, this is something which we added into our values because we have two fantastic guests. Although I am a football player, a football coach, I'm a huge fan of basketball and volleyball, and especially the growth of volleyball as I've been a resident of the Philippines has been incredible. And I know that UAAP and school football is a fantastic channel for young athletes to improve, but also to get an education. But it's very, very important that we learn to follow through with our commitments as athletes. So if you have a commitment, make sure that you communicate properly and you always fulfill your commitments. That will define us as who we are when we get older. And then, of course, time management. Very important. That's a work ethic. That's something which you will take with you as you progress through and transition through life. Time management. And of course, as a football player, time management is not just about getting to the game on time. Same, whether it's basketball, whether you're a leisurely athlete. It's going to be about making sure that you prepare on time. It's not just about leaving on time, arriving on time. It's about preparing on time. And that is all about time management skills. And that's a discipline. That goes back to understanding also when you reflect, you need to know that resting and relaxing are two different things. And there's a time that you need to be relaxing, a time that you need to sleep. And that all comes under time management. If you want to hit those optimal levels of performance, time management is going to be key. And of course, as a lot of people know, and I'm sure you can ask a lot of players, athletes who make it to the top level, lifestyle. It's a choice. There's plenty of time to enjoy yourselves and have a well-balanced life with an abundance of happiness and love in your circles, your family and your friends. But really, lifestyle is a choice. You saying yes and you saying no, it is a choice. So it really comes up to you. Next slide, please. All of the values that we're going to talk about all require discipline. Discipline for me is number one. And I can remember when I first started, and I mean, you saw, it's nice to see the Singer Cup back to back and the Filipinas Cup back to back to back. But that team that we put together spent 6 to 9 months. I can just remember this young boy from Bacolod. He really took discipline to heart, and every time he trained, he would remind all of his teammates, boys, discipline. It's the most important value. Next slide, please. So we move on to our second value, which is to focus. And focus is a word which is used in coaching. It's a coaching term. It's a key word. You'll hear it. Focus, focus during the game. But as we talk about the values now, we're going to go into more depth about really how the word focus can be used for young athletes. Next slide, please. So here you can see 3 young boys that are obviously training. And you can see by their expressions on their faces that they're really determined, they're really focused. The young man in the middle, the player, Eric Almendral, who is a walk-on starting rookie in the US now. And that's all really come from focus. So next slide. I'll just explain to you how we got those players to that sort of level. And I mean, it's nice. I know that in other sports, I mean, you score baskets and things. It's nice with football because we score goals. And, you know, the first step to really achieving anything is to set a goal. You can't achieve anything. You can't achieve a goal if you don't set it. So one thing which we use as an exercise is we try to get players to think about a 6-week goal, a 6-month goal, and a 6-year goal. So we're not just really focusing on where we want to be. We kind of take into consideration those little steps as well. And then we focus on quality of our routine, and that will bring you towards your goals. Now, we also encourage players to visualize, and I'm sure that a lot of coaches have the opportunity to encourage players to visualize. As coaches, if we're disciplined, perhaps we shift our call times to games 10, 15 minutes earlier. Just get our teams together. Let's get our athletes together, sit them down, and just give them a few minutes to visualize the patterns of play, to visualize what they're going to do when they get onto the pitch, onto the court. That's an important part of focusing. That's more about what we have ahead of us, immediately ahead of us. Whereas goal setting is about visualizing, and that can be done in a team building environment where we say, okay, where is it that you really want to be? Let's set a goal. And a goal is achievable. If you tell your teammate about your goal, you're more likely to achieve it. If we then bring in that triangle of trust between the players, the parents, and the coach, and we tell people about our goals, we're even more likely to achieve it. And we do that, our responsibility is we make sure that we always monitor, we always assess, and then that way we can achieve our goals. Next slide, please. Now, this is a key turning point. It was a key turning point in my coaching career. It's about making sure that we can teach the skill of self-motivation. For example, when you're playing basketball, it's 5 people on the court. If you're a coach and you're really trying to get across and push 5 players, then maybe that little bit of tactical information that you needed to get across, you couldn't, because you were focusing a lot of your time on motivating your team. If you can teach self-motivation, then you can focus more on the coaching side, getting across that tactical, getting across those little words, those key moments. So self-motivation is something that we need to teach. But we have to be careful with focus, because it comes in both ways. Because even if you're self-motivated, even if you set goals, even if you work hard, there's a difference between working hard and working hard with a standard. And we need to work with standards. But unfortunately, when you work hard with standards, there's also expectation. And when there's expectation, we have to make sure that we learn how to handle that side of things, disappointment. So the more we motivate our players to be self-motivated, the more we have to make sure that we are there for the players, to make sure that we really believe in them. And that will be the next value that we talk about. Next slide, please. We have to make sure that as we go through this process of motivating, focusing, setting goals, that we also make sure that we focus on the enjoyment. Now, I hope there are youth coaches from the grassroots level here, from 8 years old and below, even in the transition into youth. I hope that you're listening, because you play a very important part in the industry. Focusing on enjoyment means that you are driving passion into our young athletes. And a young athlete who is passionate has longevity in the sports world. He may shift sports, she may shift sports, but there's going to be longevity. And there's always going to be that connection to the emotion of enjoyment, which will keep them in the sport. So that's why it's very important that we have that focus as well. That way we can balance off the disappointments with setting standards to reach our goals. And then, of course, focusing on a team and our common goals. Next slide, please. So how much you want to achieve it, make it happen, and focus on your development. Next slide. Now this one is something which we coaches will share part of the burden. We have to make sure that we believe in our athletes until they believe in themselves. Next slide. During those hard training sessions, that we all do them, off season, transitioning into the pre-season, is tough. And we have to make sure that we are there for all of our athletes. Next slide, please. So at GOM Football, we believe that we have that responsibility. And I hope that in your sporting programs, you do the same. We are the support system for the success of the future athletes. I am a really, really big fan of our local athletes. I believe there is an abundance of talent here. You can't see, I'm wearing a shirt today, which for me represents that belief. This is the shirt which I wore when I was commentating, and I saw something which just motivated me, to give these talks and to be a better coach. And that is when our women's national team won the AFF. And you can just imagine how deep the support system and the belief had to be in that squad for it to develop over years into what we saw. And it's moments like that that create that confidence. It creates that momentum in young people's careers. And as coaches, as mentors, we can really grasp hold of these moments and say, you've done this, they've done that, you can do the same. And then we just build that into our athletes. So for us as football players, it's about having confidence in our aspects, in our technique, our tactical understanding, in our physique, in our mentality. If you bring that all together, you'll find athletes develop more confidence and they can start to believe in themselves. Next slide, please. Now, apart from that, having a routine, and the GSSI, it just really teaches you that there is more depth to what we know in sports. And don't be frightened to ask, because if you can develop good, strong routines, you can have confidence in that. If you eat on time, if you hydrate correctly, you go into your trainings and into your games with confidence in your routine, and that can help develop more belief. And then, of course, exposure. Never, ever be scared as a young athlete to be, oh, I can't do that. Oh, they're too good. I can't play there. No, you try and you keep doing it. Just stay out of your comfort zone. Yeah. If it gets too hard, it's a learning point. You can always go back into your comfort zone. Something which is not here, which I will most certainly add, is sharing of experience. We should encourage our young athletes to share their experiences. If you have a program, for example, which has a U19s, a U17s, a U15s, encourage the U15s to talk to the U17s, to the U19s, because that way you'll deal with a lot of the issues and the emotions through sharing experiences. And that helps develop more belief. Next slide, please. And this is where we can really get into those key words, those words which we hear all the time. Be determined, persevere, have the right work ethic. These are all things that if we just continually praise our athletes, we also earn the right to be harder with them. As long as we can give them that quality, repetition, that solid foundation to work from, then we can make sure that we can build a strong foundation for our athletes. something which they can always fall back on, because as you push to the higher level, sometimes your belief or your self-confidence starts to fade, but you'll always be able to fall back on a strong foundation and build yourself up again. Next slide, please. So when you believe in yourself for the right reasons, you will reach your full potential. Now, as we move on to the next slide, we actually added two core values, and that one of them is respect. And the reason we added that is because our program was growing, and we needed to make sure that we captured all of the values, not just the values within our program, but also the values of way our program interacts with other programs. And that's respect. Internally, it will reflect, and externally, we can receive the gratitude, and we can give the right representation of who we are as people. Next slide, please. This was a moment captured from our younger players who actually went on also to win the Filipinas Cup, and they did it in fantastic style, and it was a tough journey for them, but through respect they managed to pull through. So next slide, please. So this covers respect of coaches, making sure that we follow teammates, we learn that leadership is both ways, and then of course by interacting correctly with our teammates, we also develop that sense of family within the team. And for me, when you start talking about the strengths of any sports programs, we have to make sure that we capture the culture. By respecting ourselves like family, encouraging our family's participation, we create a positive environment, and that promotes healthy interaction. And when the environment is right, we have more development. So respect really is a key value. Next slide, please. Focus on things under your control. The number of times that I have young athletes come to me and say, "Coach, this happened, this happened, this happened." If it's not under your control, I'm not saying don't worry about it. We have an expression in football, which is that it is a game of passion. Now, for those of you who know me, I was quite a lively character when I was playing, but it just come down to one little talk. And someone told me, and I will share this with you, because it will apply to all competitive sports. Sports is not a game of passion. Sports is a game of learning how to control that passion. And that really changed me in terms of my integrity, in terms of my behavior, and now I get to talk about it. But it wasn't until someone told me that I really managed to understand. It was like a light bulb moment. Yeah, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. Next slide, please. Now, this is always going to be difficult. Balancing opportunities. We all want to win, and winning is part of any sport, but also making sure that we give opportunities to players who deserve their minutes, they deserve their time, their moment in the limelight, their opportunity to impress their mum and dad who've been bringing them to training all the time, 3-4 times a week. It's very, very important that we learn that sports is about giving opportunities to people. The winning comes when people are developing. So just remember that. And we also remember that part of that develops into respecting our environment. Okay. If you watch the World Cup, you can see the way that some of the teams clean the dressing rooms and all of this. And it's such a nice example to give to our next generation of athletes, is that we respect our environment. Next slide, please. There we go. Remember, not just to represent your program, represent your family, more importantly, represent yourself. Respect yourself and respect others. Next slide, please. We're moving on to our last value, which is trust. And I feel that other programs may use other words other than trust. I kind of felt, for me, it was fitting to use the word trust. So next slide. You can see there, it's quite a big group of boys. I think some of the people attending this seminar might be familiar with this coach, even though it's the back of him. It's Coach Ricci, who is also a fantastic sports scientist. And the reason why I've chosen this photo is that I had to trust in this man's education in sports science to be one of the first youth programs in the Philippines to really have integrated sports science into our program. And that was a big leap, but it was worth it. So trust is important. Next slide, please. Working together is an example of trust. Trusting in the process is something that we all need to do. When you come into a program, you're a coach, you're looking up to someone, trust me, all of those little emotions that you're feeling, that coach has been through it. And maybe the way that they're trying to guide you through your development, you may not truly understand. But we don't coach for us. We coach for you. And that's something which should be remembered. So when we give you advice, when we ask you to turn right, to turn left in your career paths, trust us because we're doing it for you. Be patient. And of course, develop through values. Next slide, please. We will create your pathways. As I was just talking about, me trusting in coaches working in their fields. If we can bring things together within our program, you can have more than one great mind. If we're a sports coach, a football coach, a basketball coach, let's listen to what the nutritionist has to say. Let's listen to what the sports scientist has to say, what the sports psychologists have to say. The more great minds that we have working together, the better the platform that we can build for our players. And of course, we have to be there, we have to guide, we have to nurture. And the last thing I really need to say to young players is, trust yourself, trust in your values. And us as mentors, as coaches, people who take quite an important role in a young person's life, as long as we guided through the first 4, or whatever your key values are, as long as we guide through those key values correctly, I'm very sure that the athlete that you're working with will be able to trust their decisions because they have good values. Next slide, please. Now, we spoke about this before, and I did touch on the fact that we're working with parents, we're working with guardians. I hope there's some parents and guardians who are listening to this. I like to say a triangle of trust. And if we break that triangle of trust between the coach, the parents or guardians, and the player, it then becomes very, very difficult to make sure that we get our points across. And communication is going to be key to make sure that we are balancing the needs of everyone within that triangle of trust. Next slide, please. So, enjoy the process and trust the process. And to really finish off, I would just like to say that when you play or when you coach, you become a better player. But when you do it through values, you become a better person. And that's really what it's all about. And that's pretty much that's all. I know it's quite lengthy. I know because it's a very passionate subject for me teaching through values is what we do. So thank you for your time, everybody.
Wow. Thank you very much, Coach Darren Hartman. Even my team here where I'm at. I mean, I'm here at the Gatorade office for our studio here, and we were all listening intently. And thank you for sharing with us and to all our viewers the importance of having those set of values for young athletes, because you're right, these guys will be representing not only their respective families but the nation someday when they get to international competition. So, Coach Darren, thank you very much. I'll put you first in our virtual backstage and pull you out later on for our Q&A. I hope you don't mind. You can enjoy your coffee while doing so, and we'll be getting questions from our viewers. Okay, so once again, round of applause please for Coach Darren Hartman. Thank you very much, Coach. I'll bring you back in a while. Quick shout out, Pilar, Mona, Carol, thank you very much. Aaliyah, Byron, thank you, and to all those who were giving their comments. If you have questions, type away. We'll try to pull them out. A few reminders, apart from the questions, make sure that you stay with us at the end of the show. We have 8 trivia questions. You can win prizes from Gatorade. As mentioned, we got the bottle, the shirt, the pair of socks, and even the backpack for you guys. 8 winners. And then you can receive the certificate of attendance at the end of the show when we flash the QR code during the live portion at the end of the show. Scan it, answer a quick survey, and you get to have that certificate of attendance. Okay, we now move on to our next speaker. As we say, wow, close to 5,000 viewers. Hello, guys. Thanks for staying with us. Spread the word. We're going to be here for about an hour, because after our next speaker, yung pinakahihintay po ninyo, yung mga athletes natin, okay, will be coming in. We got Ricci and Aya joining us later on. But first, our second special guest is an associate professor in the Department of Sports Science at the University of the Philippines. Her expertise includes the biochemistry of exercise and sports, as well as sports nutrition and ergogenics. She has a PhD in sports science, major in sports nutrition. Mga health buff dyan, mga fans natin, mga nanonood po sa ating GSSI webinar, let's give it up for Professor Molly Malyari. Hi, Prof. Molly. Kamusta? How are you doing?
Hi, Chicky. Good afternoon. Kumusta ka din?
I'm good, Prof. Thanks for asking. It's been a year since I last saw you virtually, and a lot of things have happened. Just like Coach Hartman, ang dami nangyari na rin sa akin, no? But it's good that we're getting out again and playing and enjoying the sport or sports that we all love. Kayo naman, Prof, kumusta po kayo?
Well, Chiki, I have been well. Of course, for the past 2 years, we have been teaching online at the UPCHK. And I'm quite excited that we are already transitioning a little bit by bit to some face-to-face activities. Alam naman natin sa field natin, no, that's very important, di ba? Yung face-to-face, and to be actually doing the activities na sobra nating na-miss, no, for the past 2 years. So I'm quite excited about that.
And we're excited to hear, Prof, what you have prepared for all of us, because I'm looking at our chat room dito, no? May marami ka ng fans who are waiting to listen to what you have prepared. Sila JB Paco are ready to listen to what you will share with all of us. So,
right.
Once again, to all our viewers out there, palakpakan po natin Professor Molly Malyari. Take it away.
Okay, so good afternoon again. Once again, I would like to thank Chiki, no, for that introduction. I think it's very common, no, for us to hear about performance nutrition for adults. So that is very common, no? But sometimes we have challenges regarding compliance, no, when we are already adults. Okay, so I think that good habits, no, borrowing a little bit from what Coach Darren was mentioning a while ago, no, good habits, including those related to nutrition and hydration, no, are best developed at a young age. Okay, so in my very short talk this afternoon, I would like to discuss with you nutrition and hydration for the youth. Yes, so next slide. Okay, so next slide. So the topics that I wish to discuss this afternoon are the following. So what does it take to fuel a young athlete? And second, what are some of the nutrition and hydration recommendations that we can take home, no, for our developing athletes? Next slide, please. Okay, so we know very well that sports is very good, no, for all ages. Okay, so whether it be the young, the kids, no, and of course adults and the elderly. Of course, for the adolescents, no, it also has very uh, heavy and positive implications when it comes to the physiological, sociological, and psychological state of your young athlete. However, there are always concerns about how sports, no, especially when it comes to intense training, no, and long durations of training and competition can affect, no, can have negative effects on growth and maturation of the athletes. Okay, next slide, please. So adolescence is a time, no, this age of 13 to 18 years old is a period of growth and physical development, no? So kasama na dito yung hormones and maturation of our organ systems, no, which could affect, no, our future health. So this is a time when a lifelong relationship with food should be established. So it includes diet, no, exercise, diet plus exercise, and possibly a concept of energy balance, no, and developing hopefully a positive body image. So this is very important at this time. Okay, so there are oftentimes time management challenges, no, for this age group because of schoolwork, you know, your academics. At the same time, they're also training. So these are what we call our student athletes, no, of course, double the time required, no, to manage everything that they have to do within the day. Okay, and they also have possibly some social commitments. Okay, and these are often become major hurdles for our young athletes. So those are the challenges, and of course you have the peers. Okay, so the barkada or the peers are actually more major moderators, no, in the behaviors of adolescents, no, and this includes eating. Okay? Now, experiences are different for each adolescent, no? Hindi naman pare-pareho, and responses will also vary for each person. So it is individualized as well. But we need to ensure, no, that the athlete will reach his or her full potential, of course. So those who are managing the athletes will need to support eating behavior, no, for the appropriate physical, physiological, and psychosocial development as well. Next slide, please. So, very familiar probably to you. You've seen this in high school or maybe even in grade school. For the most part, no, active adolescents may follow the nutritional guide pyramid. Okay, so this is specifically for 13 to 19-year olds. Okay, and it's also quite similar to those for adults. All right, with just slight differences in carbohydrate intake. Okay, and protein as well as sugar and sweet recommendations. But the FNRI has also mentioned that there are nutritional concerns for adolescents, no, which include eating disorders, skipping meals, practicing food fads, being experimental about this, no, crash diets, no, and use of alcohol and drugs. Of course, for developing athletes, these are the ones that need to be avoided. All right, next slide, please. So when we deal with developing athletes, however, fueling the activities becomes more important. So many of our coaches, I'm sure, are quite knowledgeable regarding nutrition strategies for their specific sport. All right, but do they actually know, or do they actually transfer this, no, to their young athletes? Okay, so team coaches and managers therefore need to ensure adequate intake and proper nutrition choices for training, competition, recovery, and daily activities, rather than just eating to eat. Okay, oftentimes just say, okay, just eat whatever's there. Okay, so this is the practice that needs to be modified, no, especially for our younger athletes. Right. So expanding food choices could help ensure this. Okay, that they are properly fueled for their sport, and also being mindful of the choices, not just eating whatever is there in front of you, but being mindful of what you are eating, right? So a basic eating plan includes being mindful of the energy or the kilocalories to promote health and performance, the nutrients to maintain appropriate body composition and to promote recovery. We'll talk about those in a bit. Proper hydration. We will also talk a little bit about this later. And of course, an uh, all year round nutrition program. So this is not something that just should be done pre-competition, right? This is a nutrition program that should be done um, all year round. Okay, this also prevents us from having unwanted weight gain and having to deal with dieting, no, just pre-competition. Okay, so this has to be practiced whole year round. Okay, next slide, please. So as we can see from this figure, it is proposed that the implementation of body composition assessments should be matched with the level of the athletes or the athlete development stage, you know, and their nutrition skills. So if you see on the left side, we have different levels, no, for athlete development. You have at the very lowest is your developing, and then you have your national or collegiate level, and of course your elite or professional level. And in terms of nutrition skills, at the very base, of course, you have foundational nutrition skills, and then developing, and then your advanced. So at the very base, the body composition discussions should focus on ensuring growth progression rather than performance. So this is a very important concept, no, from this particular figure, right? And as you go up the triangle, no, it changes from limited focus on body composition assessment and discussions from from a health perspective, no, for national and collegiate level, and for elite, that's when you can start looking at discussing body composition assessment with the training program. And you have to make sure that the athletes already have a positive self body image. Okay, so next slide, please. So, one simple way to ensure that our young athlete is getting adequate nutrients starts from an estimation of their metabolic rate. So, similar to most predictive equations related to metabolism, we can see here in this equation that body mass and height and gender, no, are important parts of the equation. Okay, so RMR, or your resting metabolic rate, is the amount of energy that you need per day, right? Pero resting. Okay, so obviously, if you're going to do your training or your competition and doing the other things that you need to do during the out throughout the day, then you will have to add a little bit more energy, no, to this. Okay, so using this equation by Real et al. At rest, a male athlete who is 70 kilograms and 170 centimeters tall will need 1,865 calories per day, while the female will need 1,668 calories per day. Okay, this is of course individualized to how heavy and how tall, or whether the young athlete is male or female. Okay, the males would usually need more calories per day, and this is for resting. Okay, so at the very least, this amount of calories per day. So, depending on the type of activity, duration, frequency, caloric requirements will have to be adjusted accordingly. Body composition assessments may also be done to be able to check the adequacy, of the nutritional strategies that you are employing for your athletes. The best evidence that we have of nutrient adequacy is the athlete is at his or her optimal weight, of course. Body composition, again, it's a health check, okay? Is injury and sickness free, okay? Of course, it will also be evident in the performance of the athlete in the sport during training as well as in competition. Okay, so next slide, please. So, adequate intake supports normal growth and development as well as the needs for training. So, the opposite of adequate intake is this, no, low energy availability and red S. So, red S stands for relative energy deficiency in sport. Okay, so this concept is, of course, relevant for both male and female athletes. Okay, and if such behavior is prolonged, there is an increased risk for negative effects, of course. So it becomes a possible precursor for the female athlete triad as well, which increases risk for injury and affects overall health, of female young athletes. Okay, so a negative energy balance may sometimes be desirable if there's a need to lose weight. Okay, but chronic negative energy balance. So doing this for an extended period of time, all right, may result in delayed puberty, menstrual irregularities, poor bone health, short stature, disordered eating behaviors, and of course, an increased risk for injury. Next slide, please. So for the macronutrient needs, you will see, recommendations based on whoever did the research, but this is quite common and quite safe for us to present here. The work of IMPI, fuel for the work required, requiring 1.5 grams per kilogram per day of protein, and the same for carbohydrate, and 20 to 35% of your total energy allowance, for fat. Now, one thing that I want to stress in this particular research is that the macronutrients are spread out throughout the day. So, as you can see here, it's recommended to have about zero point 0.3 grams per kilogram um, for 5 meal times to make up your 1.5 grams per kilogram per day. So spread out the protein, spread out the carbohydrate throughout your day, and that is even more important. Okay, so next slide, please. So for the micronutrient needs, of course, um, all the micronutrients that are important for adults, are also important for children. But there is for adolescents, sorry, but iron, calcium, and vitamin D seems to be the top of the list. No, for iron, adolescent females that are high risk for iron deficiency because of their high iron requirements, and turnover. For calcium, of course, we know that bone development very important. It's also needed for uh, for our muscular work, no. And usually, sometimes when they have inadequate intake, the amount of iron and calcium that they're taking is also decreased, right? So there is deficiency that could happen. Of course, vitamin D helps the body absorb calcium, so it also helps in bone growth, no, bone healing. It also has an immune system function as well. Very easy for us to get some vitamin D. Just go out in the midday sun when it's the hottest, expose your skin, no, and stay out there between 10 and 30 minutes most days of the week. All right, so that would be very helpful. Next slide, please. So for fluid needs, we know, of course, that we need to replace water and electrolytes. Similar for adults, it is the same, of course, for adolescents. But most especially, for if they are exposed or are in the heat for an extended period of time, it becomes more important. The thing with adolescents, is that there is limited data, on sweat composition in adolescents. So it's difficult to accurately recommend the amount of replacement for electrolytes for this particular group. So the research will have to be done um, as well. So increasing rest periods is also recommended, especially if the group is not acclimatized, to the high heat or to the high humidity, and temperature in the area where they are training or competing. It would also be good to drink, regardless of thirst, 100 to 250 ml every 20 minutes. And of course, weighing pre to post exercise to make sure that they are not losing too much weight before and after exercise. If they do not lose too much weight, that means they are practicing adequate hydration during their training session or their competition. Next slide, please. So, lastly, we have some practical recommendations. The key to a healthy nutritional program for young athletes is to make it year round. Okay, so be mindful, be purposeful in what you have your athletes eat. Okay, suggestions for helping adolescents eat a more balanced and healthy diet. It also includes making healthy food taste better, be more available and convenient, and also limiting, so wag i-offer, no, so it's not around in their house. Okay, limiting the availability of unhealthy options. Okay, it would also help to teach adolescents good eating habits at an early age and make it cool to eat healthy and balanced meals. So I hope I was able to share something useful for you this afternoon. Back to you, Chicky.
Well, Yari, thank you so much, Prof. Wow, we're over 7,000 already watching, and a lot of our viewers have questions for you, and including Coach Cartman. Can we bring back Coach Darren in? I would like to bring our two speakers again because I'm looking at the chat room. Coach Darren, Prof. Molly, um, in your spare time later on, while we move later on after our Q&A, when we go to our athletes, if you have enough time, maybe you can also answer some of the questions. I hope you don't mind if you go to the Facebook page of Gatorade also. Okay, so
Sure.
Q&A time. And again, everyone, please palakpakan po muna natin Coach Darren and Coach and Professor Molly as we go to our Q&A. So I hope you don't mind. I'll go alternate with you guys. I'll start with Coach Darren. Coach Darren, uh, to all our 7,000 plus viewers right now, first question I'll throw your way. With regard to our youth athletes, what would you recommend as top three exercises for proper conditioning before a game for our young athletes? Okay, let's say both for weekend warriors and for those trying to make it to the team, and even those for the varsity level already. What would be your top three exercises, Coach?
Well, for me, one of the first things that we need to understand is the different types of fitness. So, firstly, identifying exactly what your physical demands of your sport are. So, if you're unsure, then ask a coach, ask someone who plays a sport regularly at a competitive level. But make sure that you have a good base level of aerobic fitness. That's the thing that I would say. And the easiest way to do that, you go old school, old fashioned, is you can do a Cooper test. And I know no one likes the Cooper test, but it's one of the, all you really need for a Cooper test is some form of measuring distance. And there's lots of ways to do that. And stopwatch, and you just run for 12 minutes. And then I promise you, if you run for 12 minutes and you get a distance, if you message it to me, I would tell you where you are and what you need to improve on. So I would say get a base level. And the easiest way to get a base level is by doing a very basic aerobic fitness test. The next thing I would say for proper conditioning is, this is something I learned from Coach Ricci actually, is avoid injury, because what defines you as an athlete is going to be the amount of time that you can spend on a pitch, on a field, on a court. And if you're injured, that's something which is out of your control when you get back. So activation is a very, very important conditioning exercise, and I think it's overlooked a lot. So I would say basic fitness, make sure you do your activation correctly, and that is before you do your stretching. And then I would say that the third thing to do for proper conditioning is actually just to monitor your output. So play. I know that's taking a cheap way out of an answer, but really it is to play and to gauge how much you were able to give to that particular phase of the game, and then readjust and go again and push yourself hard.
Love it, love it. Thank you, Coach. Just to add quickly, so the old belief of stretch before you play, you gotta run a good sweat, right? A good sweat before you start stretching. Otherwise, you risk yourself into getting into all sorts of different injuries, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, if you just stretch cold, not good practice. And that's why we say activation, then you do your specific stretching before you go into your more dynamic stretches, and they should be matched to the activity you're going to do. And just a reminder, as you are doing your activation, you are already working out and you are already putting demands on your body, so you need to hydrate. And that's something which a lot of people forget, is as you are activating, you're already losing fluids, you're already losing electrolytes, you're already using energy, and you should make sure that you replenish those as you go through your warm-up. So when you start, you're at a good starting point.
I like that. I like that. So, guys, real talk from Coach Darren. Don't wait until you're thirsty, because that's not a good sign, right? That you need to rehydrate. Remember, before, during, and after, it's crucial, and that's why you need something like Gatorade to make sure that you replenish the fluids that you lose. Coach, I'll go back to you. I go to Professor Molly. Coach Darren was mentioning about making sure that you have a good warm up and all, but you have to have fuel in your body. You have to have energy when you do such exercises. So for the young ones who might feel, Professor Molly, that they don't need the extra food to exercise, I believe that's wrong. What kind of diet should our youth do when engaging in sports? I saw a slide earlier. You said, don't eat for
Mm.
the sake of eating. Don't eat for the sake of
Yeah.
eating. So, Prof. Molly, once again, what would you recommend for the youth to as their diet or practice in putting food in their body before they engage in any physical or sports exercise?
All right, Chicky, I think for the most part, they have to be very mindful, no, of what they put in their bodies. So what we're talking about here is not no more junk food. Okay, for the kids. All right, no more junk food. And carbohydrates, no, are very important. We know that, but even for the kids, too much of the simple sugars, it should also be avoided. But we're talking about fueling, no, for the sport, no, for performance, for training and competition. Oftentimes, just before they on, let's say, the field to play football, no, it would have been a couple of hours before their last meal, right? So how would you ensure that they are able to still perform, without collapsing, especially when it's really hot, right? um, an hour or 30 minutes before they go on the field, no, they could take some carbohydrate electrolyte drinks such as Gatorade, of course, no? And that will help both supply some of the energy that they need, as well as give them proper hydration for their activity. So that is one thing that they can do. And another thing, you spread out the meals. So these athletes do not only eat 3 times a day, but actually five at the very least. So, spread out the meals where they are able to take in their protein, their carbohydrates, um, most especially, for recovery as well. So after they play, within 30 minutes, they should be able to replenish it with what they have lost, no? um, through what they're eating.
Love it, love it. Thank you, Professor Molly. And I guess for those who have access to nutritionists, right? It won't hurt if you go to a professional and make sure that you get a good list of how to prepare the right food. And I saw Coach
Yeah.
Darren earlier when you said, Professor Molly, no to junk food. Both of us gave the. I know it's tough. It's
It's
tough,
not.
right? We all love that, but seriously, speaking right now, if you have kids in your families who would want to be top athletes someday, there's really a price to pay, right? We have to do those small sacrifices. But
I believe so. Yeah.
Prof, is cheating allowed once in a while just
Of
to
course.
enjoy life? Of course.
Of course, of course. Cheating is allowed.
Coach Darren, we're safe. We're safe. We can have those chips once in a while. Okay, we'll pull out questions from the comment section. Okay, I go back to Coach Darren Hartman. Um, Coach, question from one of our viewers: how do you encourage young athletes to stay committed to their sport? Okay, I'll add on to that question. A lot I would hear some parents, real talk again, saying sometimes if we start them young, the burnout might be the case, or we start them young in one sport, they have a tendency of jumping from one sport to the other. How do you encourage these athletes, Coach Dyer, to stay committed to their chosen sport?
Well, I really like the way that you've uh, kind of added to that question because it makes it easier to answer and give, as you said, that real talk feedback, which is what people want. Now, for me, for example, I'm asking my daughters, do you want to play football? Of course, they say no. One wants to be an OB-GYN and the other one wants to be a vet, which is fine. So if I'm going to introduce my children into sports, I'm going to pick sports that have a good platform of coordination, have a good platform of reaction, and a good platform of controlling motor mechanics. And that's the easiest way to do it because then it doesn't matter if they lose a little bit of interest in one sport because they're going to have the fundamentals to be an athlete. Now, I know there might be some people who follow football all the way up to the FIFA level and the World Cups. I promise you, a program which was introduced into France, which was about running, jumping, throwing, and catching, helped them win the Euros and the World Cup 10 years after. And that's how simple sports can be if you have a good platform. We have to remember, most children lose interest when lifestyle choices are there as you get older. And the thing is that we need to remind the athletes is that as you progress down your pathway, is that remember the goals that you set, remember the enjoyment factor which I spoke about, which coaches have, you know, they have to commit to making sure that they're teaching fun and not chasing the result. And that's going to be the most difficult thing, is that when your son and daughter have chosen their sport, is just to always encourage them, because at the end of the day, they're doing it to enjoy. And then for the few who excel, it then starts to become more competitive, and that is when we start helping them handle the expectations. But the first thing is to make sure that we give them a strong foundation of athleticism, which then can be built on, because there are lots of reasons for people to lose interest in sports. It isn't just lifestyle. Growth spurts are horrible because you have to deal with your body changing, and then you lose coordination. You can get injured during a growth spurt. But if you have that strong foundation, you can quickly bring everything back in. And then as long as the parents and the coaches are supportive, we can remind them, hey, you know what? You do this because you enjoy it. And that is the way that we make sure that we keep athletes committed into their sports.
Wow, very well said, Coach Darren. And I'm encouraging all the parents out there, if you have related questions such as that, especially for the younger athletes, right? I'm sure, Coach Darren, later on, please share your social media handles where they can reach you. Probably consult with Coach Darren as well. And just a friendly reminder to all our viewers watching. I see some of the comments. I hope you don't mind. Let's keep it positive out there. We got lots of kids watching us right now, so it would be nice if we could limit our comments to positive ones. Am I right, Coach Darren, Professor Molly? We got lots of young
Yes.
kids watching us right now. Okay, I jump to Professor Molly. Professor Molly, this is a nice question coming from Prakash Kondekar. I hope I pronounced that correctly. What is the line of demarcation? I think, how do you separate, or the thin line that separates dehydration and hydration? What would be a very good specific indicator? Because again, I'll use that phrase, real talk. Some of us don't feel that we are dehydrated because we say, I'm not thirsty, but only to find out we are already dehydrated. So, Prof. Molly, what's that thin line that separates hydration and dehydration?
Um, Thanks for the question first, not Chicky. And you're right about saying about with regards to thirst. No, it's the actually one of the simplest ways that you can say that you are already actually dehydrated. No, so you feel thirsty when your the level of the water levels of your body are already quite low. So as they say, it is actually best to drink before you do feel thirsty, right? To keep yourself hydrated and developing that those habits, of drinking every 15, 20 minutes. No, those are of course good habits to develop. Now, with regards to that fine line, when it comes to sport, it is identified actually at 2% body mass loss from your normal. So it's quite technical. So um, that is the most universal way that I can explain it. However, um, you can also check. There's an easy check of looking at the color of your urine
Okay,
as well.
okay.
So there are many ways of checking it actually. But if you see that your urine is a bit on the orangey side, you know,
You,
that possibly means that, yeah, you are more than 2% dehydrated. So 1 to 2%, it could still be the light yellow, right? So um, maybe that's something that he was asking uh, for. Yeah.
Okay.
When you say 2% though, all you have to do is just measure body mass. So that's also quite
Mhm.
easy. Yeah.
Okay, so two ways, right? I mean, you shared two different ways, Prof. Molly. Either you go
Mm.
body mass 2%, as you mentioned, or if you're the type who might need help in trying to figure that out, simply check the color of your urine. Um, I know kids would sometimes just keep on running around, right? And then they don't even know that they're dehydrated already. So parents, that would be a good indicator. Good
Yes.
indicator
Yes.
that they need to replenish. And
Hydrate.
I think Coach Darren, Prof. Molly, at an early age, you mentioned this, Coach Darren, the values of having that nice habit, the practice. If you have that habit of waking up and training, Prof. Molly, have that habit of eating right, drinking at specific times of the day. For as long as you do that to the young ones, it's gonna stick with them, right? Until they get older. So parents, start them young. Start them young. Okay. I go to Coach Jaren. This is nice. This is really nice. I'm already in my 20s and I wish to be an athlete. Is it still possible to become one? Any tips and advice to boost my confidence as a starter? Now, I you might want to put some context there, Coach, on saying yes or no in terms of being an athlete, because I'm sure the age might come into as a big factor. So, Coach Darren, how would you answer this one?
Well, thank you for the question. It's actually quite a good question. For me, the definition of athlete is it's very wide. So you could talk about elite athletes, which you would normally, you know, say that you have to start younger to really hone your skills in a specific sport. Then you have your endurance athletes, you have elite endurance athletes, and then of course you have different levels of athletes. Like for example, archery has a much different demand on the body than football and being a marathon runner. So I mean, if you drop a message in the comments later and tag me and let me know exactly what athlete it is that you're trying to become, then I would love to have a chat and maybe enlighten and try to give some guidance, because you hear fantastic stories about people who just pick up a sport and are very natural at it. We all have our talent, and if you find your talent, then there's no reason why, even if you pick it up later, that you can't go on to be professional. But if you're talking about just becoming an athlete, leisurely athlete, in your 20s, that's absolutely fine. One thing I would say is get consent medically, because you want to make sure that you are physically fit to do it. You're obviously at the mental part. You want to start. You're excited. You want to be an athlete. So just make sure you get your physicals done correctly, and then just start slow and build. So that will gain your confidence. You have to remember that it's going to be a long journey. If you start slow, then you just build. Give yourself little targets, build towards them, reward yourself when you've done that. Learn about your body on the way. Learn about the effects of hydration, the effects of having the right intake, and then just slowly build your profile, and you can get there.
Thank you, Coach. And that question came from Amalia Joyce Abenoa. So, Amalia, Coach Darren said if you'd like to chat more, um, type away, share with Coach Darren what type of athlete you'd like to become. And I have to agree with you, even at that age, if you're a weekend warrior who'd like to stay physically fit with all these sporting activities coming out already, it's not too late, right? It's not too late. It's a matter of knowing your limitations and what your body can take. Okay, I go back to Prof. Molly. Prof. Molly, at what age should young athletes start training in terms of physical and even on the emotional side? Okay, are they physically mature, emotionally mature already? What are your thoughts on that question, Prof. Molly?
Cheeky, I think this is question that Coach Darren can answer better. So
Okay,
I'm passing it on to Coach Darren. I hope you don't
Coach
mind.
Darren, we call that a in basketball an assist.
An
An
assist,
So,
yes.
assist.
Time.
Yeah,
It's your
go
time.
be
Yep.
professional.
okay, Coach D, take it away.
Well, I would say there's no right or wrong here. I would, but in terms of building good habit and building those fundamentals and that foundation, they say the younger the better. Now, the most common age to start the more team-based sports would be around 6, 7 years old. I mean, that's really at a point where coaches can um, jump on board with the learnings of being, in grade one, grade two, where the discipline of being in a routine is starting to, be part of a child's life. So that's a good time to say, okay, every Saturday morning, you're not waking up and going to school, you're waking up and you're going to, basketball, you're going to a volleyball training, or you're going to taekwondo or, karate. So really, I would say as school starts is a really good time to use sports as a mechanism to help
Hmm.
with the weekly routine or the daily routine of a young athlete. And of course, in terms of the physicality, it's going to be all about just enjoyment, making sure that the kids get to interact, of course, which is something which we've missed for the last 2 years, is to make sure that kids get that interaction, and that helps build the emotional maturity. So I would say around 6, 7 years old when they start grade school is probably the best time. But for those of us who are like, oh, I was an athlete and I want my kids to start. I've seen kids playing, basketball, football at the age of like 4 and 5. And in the Philippines, a lot of people say, how come we're not producing, better athletes? But the one thing I would say is that when it comes to the younger side of development, I reckon we're on par, if not better, than some of the Western world. And the reason is because I truly believe that we are very patient in culture, very family orientated in culture, and we're good at handling young children. Like for example, my sister-in-law with my children, she's incredible. But so is my cousin and my second cousin. We're just good with children here. So don't be frightened if you really want your child to start at 4 or 5 years old. Enjoy the process, enjoy watching them interact. It's never too early.
All right, we got the final two questions that I'm gonna mention, and then to all our viewers, I'm just looking at the chat room here. Fantastic, we got a lot of questions here. Don't worry, we'll try to answer all of them, and later on when we go to our guest athletes, Coach Darren and Professor Molly will try to squeeze in some answers as well. Coming from the reply of Coach Darren to the parents out there, when you try to put your kids into sports, make sure that they enjoy it too. Okay, it should be fun. At 6 and 7, try not to pressure your kids so much.
Mm.
Make sure that they enjoy the sport. Okay, Professor Molly,
Yes,
I I
Chief.
I personally would like to ask this as well, because for kids who might be engaging in an hour or a 2 hour sporting event, okay, how many bottles of Gatorade is recommended, not just to recover from dehydration, but let's say a basketball game, a 40-minute basketball game lasts for about an hour and a half. Put some
Mm.
timeouts here and there, an hour 45, right? Warm ups, call time before you
Mhm.
play. Training for football, volleyball, basketball lasts for about what, 2 hours? Not to mention waking up early, call time, stretching, and all. What would you recommend would be the number of bottles of Gatorade that the young athletes should prepare and bring with them and drink for the duration of a training period or an actual competition? Prof?
Yeah, okay. So it would greatly depend on how long, the duration of the activity that they are doing. So if it's just less than an hour, there's actually no need. for us to replenish with electrolytes and sugar, no, it's just an hour. But when you go after an hour, especially if you're outdoors and hot and humid conditions, no, it becomes more important that we do replenish. Now, with Gatorade, it has an advantage, of course, because it already has both the glucose or the sugar that we need to replenish what we have lost during training, as well as the electrolytes. And as I mentioned a while ago, the fluid as well. So it really depends. We cannot say how many, because it depends on how long the activity is. But if it's an hour and a half, 2 hours, one bottle should be enough. And I would always recommend that for you to check if you have replenished enough of the fluid that you lost, to weigh yourself before and after your session. If you are serious about um, uh, recovering, from the fluids that you have lost during your training or competition. So
Okay.
for one and a half
So good.
hours, one bottle should be okay.
One bottle. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. Molly. We throw our last question to Coach Darren, and again after this, we'll try to answer all the questions in the chat box there. This is coming from Melai Javier for Coach Darren. How can this is so nice? Our children be more disciplined in their chosen sport, especially when they don't listen to their coach. So I'm thinking that the child of Melai probably is a toddler here. No, not unless this child is already in his teens, then that's a totally different problem. But if it's a but if it's a toddler, I would understand. So, coach, kidding aside, the young ones, the toddlers, how do you make them listen to their coaches?
Well, I think for this question, that's actually quite a tough question. I'm going to have to go off experience and talk about my profession as a football coach. Now, what we have is at grassroots level, which is from say the 6 years old up to say 9, 10 years old. The coaching should be very focused on enjoyment, and as long as the kids are enjoying themselves, it gives them a reason to go back and learn more. Now, where we need to be stronger in our field is transitioning into youth football. And there's this very important part of a child's development where we have to teach the importance of, and we miss that, just saying the importance of. So in our field, you have to be good technically, you have to be good tactically, you have to be good physically, and you have to be good mentally. Now, when you're young and you're just doing it for fun, those things don't come into play. And then what happens is that children start turning, say, 11, 12 years old, and all of a sudden, sports becomes more physical. Everything becomes faster all of a sudden. And then when you start hitting puberty, again, the level of sports just increases. Then all of a sudden, you're an 18-year-old player, and people are like very muscular. And I know that people say to me, "Oh, basketball's non-contact." Yeah, basketball's contact. Yeah, I get bullied in basketball, and you can't go from being a young child to then all of a sudden being in a very physical environment if you don't have the teaching of the importance of. That's what we call it in our field. So you need to say to your son or to your daughter, when you're older, the game is going to be faster. So you have to do this. When you're older, the game will be tactically more demanding. So right now, you have to do this. And if they really truly love the sport, and you can get that message across, that your development is like this, you can actually get them at a young age to be disciplined. But you have to tell them why. So perhaps the coach needs to be, in this situation, thinking about where the player needs to be and just plant that thought that when you're older, it's going to be harder. So you need to be more disciplined now. And I can relate with football, but I'm sure that a basketball coach could get that across to a basketball player the same way volleyball and other sports. But hopefully your child is a football player and maybe that related. So, good question though. Ally, very, very good
Love
question.
it.
Yeah,
Love it. Love it.
good
I like
answer
that. I
too,
like
coach.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. I was just nodding because I was thinking of my own kids as well. So parents out
Yeah.
there, if you have kids who'd like to go football, Coach Ryan is here. Of course, Prof. Molly will also be able to help you guys, making sure that all the needs of your kids, right, when they train, the hydration aspect will also be attended to. Lots of questions of over close to 6,000 viewers right now. Prof. Molly, Coach Darren, unfortunately, our this portion will have to end. But before I let you go, parting shots first and final message. Short and sweet. We'll start with Coach Darren. Go ahead, Coach.
Well, thank you all for giving your time, and I hope that I was able to pass on some information that I've learned about values and about the importance of making sure that we do teach through values and the way that values form us into the people that we become. And I hope that one day, perhaps there's someone listening to this who will go on and do the same thing and continue it onto the next generation and do an even better job than what I did today. Of course, let's make sure that we stay safe, we stay hydrated, and we keep enjoying our sport. Thank you for having me, everyone.
Thank you, Coach Darren. Prof. Molly, your turn before we will let you guys go.
There's no better time to get good habits when it comes to nutrition and hydration than when you're young. So, the coaches who are listening out there, make sure to support your athletes in terms of everything that was discussed um, earlier. No, make good choices and be purposeful when you recommend nutrition strategies to your athletes. Also, remember that nutrition and hydration is very important for you to be able to produce the energy you need for your sport and also to be able to recover well. So keep in mind, it's crucial to develop these good habits, when you are also looking at doing sports for the long run. So that's it. Thank you for listening.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Guys, a round of applause, please, for Coach Darren Hartman and Professor Molly Malyari for our the first part of our segment. Thank you very much, guys. Stay safe. And again, if you have time, if you don't mind, questions in the chat box there, hope you can answer some of them so that our viewers will be able to enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you, Coach Darren, Prof. Molly, and see you guys soon as we move on to the next part of our session today. Again, that was a loaded first part, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys learned a lot from Coach Darren and Prof. Molly. And as mentioned earlier, we now move on to our guest athletes. But before that, reminders, continue chatting or giving us your questions down there. Number two, make sure that you join us until the end of the show because we got 8 trivia questions. You get to bring home prizes if you answer correctly. And finally, we'll have our certificate of attendance, a QR code at the end of the show. Okay, so here we go. We move on to our guest athletes. Introducing our first guest athlete. He is a former UAAP basketball player for the University of the Philippines, and he is now a professional basketball player for the Taoyuan Pilots. Taoyuan Pilots, I hope I pronounced that correctly, representing the Philippines. Ganda, no? Naabot na ibang bansa para maglaro ng basketball. But apart from his skills on the court, yung kanyang hops, ano ba, sidestep, shooting, slashing, defense, everything, complete package. He is also a model and an actor. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome Ricci Rivero.
Hello,
Hi,
hello, Kuya
Rich.
Chicks. Hello, everyone.
Oh, kamusta ka? How are you doing, Richie?
So far, okay pa naman, Kuya Chicks. Ito lang, syempre, nagpe-prepare for, kasi I'm about to leave na rin this month. And, um, like, tinatry ko na rin ipaisip and ipa-feel sa sarili ko, syempre, na matagal akong mawawala.
Wow. Huwag kang mag-alala. Lahat kami nasa likod mo and praying for you and rooting for you as you represent your team and of course as you represent the Pinoy basketball fans, no? Kaming mga Pinoy basketball fans. So, I'll go back to
Thank you.
you, Richie, as I introduce yung makakasama mo dito sa ating chat portion with our guest, super athletes. Ito naman, she is a part of the Philippine national team in volleyball and the team captain of the UST Golden Tigresses in the UAAP. And just like Richie, galing din ito sa malupit na pamilya ng mga atleta. Ha? Magaling din talaga yung pamilya nito. Yung DNA nito, parang Rivero din. No? Ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome Ea Laure. Ea, magandang hapon sa'yo. Palakpakan natin si Ea. Ikaw naman, kamusta ka na talaga nasa Tito Zone na, no? Hindi na talaga maiiwasan yung Tito Zone kay Tito Cheeky. Oo. But kidding aside, Aya, how are you doing? That's nice. That's nice to hear. I'm sure you guys are taking care of your bodies talaga na. Okay. So, we have over 5,000 viewers, Aya and Richie. I'll bring Richie back in. Thank you very much, Direk. We have a lot of viewers. They've been clamoring earlier, start nung show natin. Nasaan na si Aya, nasaan si Richie, and they've stayed with us. So, this is it. Kwentuhan portion, chat portion na tayo about sports, about you guys, ha? We got questions from our viewers and we'll still be getting questions as we go through the show. So, ito muna, I'll start with Richie and then I'll go to you, Aya. Richie, ikaw, you've grown into a young man. You're going out of the country representing the Philippines. Pero when you were growing up, Richie, what were the challenges that you faced when you were just beginning as an athlete in the sport of basketball? Ano yung mga uh, ano ba, obstacles, pagsusubok na pinagdaanan mo rin, Rich?
Um, for me, sobrang dami din po. But to cut it short, alam naman natin syempre na in life, there's really nothing easy, 'di ba? It really has to be a process, especially on becoming an athlete and as a person, 'di ba lahat naman tayo are a work in progress, 'di ba? So, syempre marami tayong pagdadaanan na kailangan una for me kasi mas important talaga is our mental health, 'di ba? So, we have to believe in ourselves, believe that there's always a way in everything. And there's always a reason bakit nangyayari yung mga bagay-bagay, 'di ba? So, marami tayong pagdadaanan na uh, minsan mapapaisip tayo na parang ano ba 'tong nangyayari? Bakit ba siya nangyayari sa akin? Malalagpasan ko ba 'to, 'di ba? Pero if we believe in ourselves, if we put and have faith kay Papa Jesus, 'di ba? Marami marami tayong malalagpasan challenges na mga ganyan. Especially sa aming athletes, yung mga, syempre may mga minor injuries, may mga
Aha.
major, 'di ba? Pero kailangan lahat 'yon mag-start siya dun sa yung mga little things talaga, especially yung yun nga like sabi ni Aya, yung sa strengthening, conditioning, rehab, lahat yan pagdadaanan natin and kailangan talaga natin siyang pagdaanan. Alam ko mahirap and minsan
Aha.
nakakatamad siya. O, 'di ba? Hindi naman everyday ganado tayo, pero ganun talaga yung buhay, eh, 'di ba? Kailangan lagpasan natin yan, ma-overcome natin lahat.
I like how you put that, Richie, ano, na marami talagang challenges. Isang challenge dun yung at one point, minsan tao lang eh, pagising mo, wala ka sa hulog, di ba? I mean, Eya, I'm sure matatawa din dyan si Eya. Minsan parang, parang tinatamad ako mag-train ngayon, ano? But you simply have to overcome that. Now, ikaw, Eya, on your end, ano naman yung mga challenges that you encountered when you were just beginning sa sport ng volleyball?
Challenges siguro, talaga agree ako dun sa gigising ako ng maaga. Kasi hindi ako morning person eh. Pero I think isa yung patience sa sarili. Kasi nung nagsi-start din ako sa volleyball, parang from basketball kasi parang medyo malayo ng onte. Pero yung patience ko sa sarili na matuto mag-volleyball sa simula, yun siguro yung isa sa mga challenges ko na hinarap nung nagsi-start ako matuto mag-volleyball.
Okay, wow. We're hearing this, of course, for the first time from you guys. I jump to our second question. Rich, ikaw, anong una mong ginawa when you started playing? Siguro naglagyan ko ng additional context yan. In the sport of basketball, okay? I'm sure may iniidolo ka, di ba? Na manlalaro. Did you try to emulate that person that you looked up to when you started playing ball for the first time?
For sure, Kitchix. Lahat naman tayo, 'di ba, may mga ganyan, especially sa athletes, 'di ba? Meron tayong actually in life ganyan eh, 'di ba? Na may gusto kang gayahin, gusto kang magaya or magawa ng kung paano niya ginawa yung mga bagay-bagay na tayo into it tayo, 'di ba? So ako growing up talaga, Kitchix, ano ko eh. Sila JJ Helterbrand, ganyan, sila Kuya J, sobrang
Wow!
sobrang talaga yan. So, lahat ng mga unang part, grabe as in talagang every game nila manonood ako, ganon. Tapos, kapag
Ah,
may mga bagong moves, ganyan, gagayahin ko, diba? Tapos, yung mga ganyan. And, kaya chicks kasi kami, hindi kami nag-start din, um, wala namang nag-start na magaling ka agad, diba? So, yung sa amin dati, kapag gusto mo lang din talaga, pipilitin mo rin talaga yung sarili mo na mag-improve. And mas
oo.
maging better every day, 'di ba? Yung dati, nung nasa province, umaabot sa time na hindi talaga kami nakakasali sa games, gano'n. Tapos kami parang, malulungkot lang kami magkakapatid eh, na tara, laro na lang tayo sa bahay, gano'n. Kahit walang ring, minsan sa pader na lang, matamaan mo lang yung ano, na ilalagay mo dyan, okay na yun. 'Di ba? Yung mga ganung bagay. Pero kapag meron ka kasing ina-idolize, mas nabu-boost din yung moral mo na hindi, magagawa ko to. One day aabot ako sa ganyang point. One day makakapag-inspire din ako ng mga bata, 'di ba? Na mas ganahan sila hindi lang dun sa sport but dun sa araw-araw na pagdadaanan nila.
Um, Real talk ulit yan, no, Rich? Totoo, no, minsan hindi ka na ipapasok, tapos wala kang, wala kang ring sa loob ng bahay, mag-iimbento ka lang ng imaginary target mo. Gusto ko tanong dito kay Eya. Eya, ganun din ba yung experience mo? Ano bang unang ginawa mo when you started playing volleyball? Did you encounter that too? Did you go dun sa phase na yun na sinabi ni Richie?
Ako naman, Tito Chicks, parang ano naman yung sa'kin, same, almost the same ng kay Ricci. Pero, syempre, meron din ako ina-idolize na parang volleyball player, which is si Aizo Maizo. And then, nung story kasi sa'kin, may rule si daddy na kapag hindi ako nag-aral ng mabuti, like may grades ako na pangit, hindi ako pwede mag-training or hindi ako pwedeng mag-attend ng kahit anong activities. So, isa yon sa mga challenges ko. Pero, syempre, mas na-motivate ako na, okay, gagalingan ko sa school para mapanood ko din etong idol ko. So, I think isa yon sa mga hinarap kong, yung parang first thing na ginawa ko nung nagsistart ako. And of course, yung mindset na din, since si daddy, nag-ano siya, training niya na kami since bata pa lang. So, nandun na sa amin yung mindset na kapag nag-training ka, kailangan mag-improve ka every training. So, ayun po.
Doon sa mga hindi ko nakakaalam ha, si Daddy is of course si Eddie Laure, isa sa mga kilalang basketballista po sa bansa natin. And I was smiling as you were mentioning that because your dad is really known to be a very disciplined athlete, and it just shows kasi nag-trickle down sa inyo. And I have to say the same thing for your family, Richie, dahil hindi naman kayo abot ng kuya mo into this level kung hindi rin kayo ginabayan, no, ng mga magulang ninyo. Okay. Dahil pasado 6:00 na, usapang pagkain tayo, usapang nutrition tayo, Rich, sa iyo ko dadalhin ito, as I'm sure our viewers, some of them are keeping us in the background. They're preparing their respective dinners with their respective families. Ikaw, Richie, how does nutrition affect the way you train and the way you play? Kasi yung galawan ninyo, and I'll ask you the same question later on. Kasi yung sport ninyo requires a lot of energy, 'di ba? Sa kala Richie, jumping, running, lateral, sprints. Kala same way, maaring half court nga lang yan, but the training in volleyball, it takes a lot from the players. Richie, I'll start with you. How does nutrition affect the way you train and the way you play?
Actually, Kichix, pinag-usapan nyo rin naman to kanina nila professor, nila Dr. Molly, na once in a while pwede tayo magkaroon ng mga cheat day. Kasi, ganun talaga parang, as long as yung sa akin, mas kapag nag-cheat day ako ng dun sa nutrition ko, mas nag-a-add ako ng extra dun sa workload ko. For example, minsan dapat every other day at most, ganon, or 2 days yung interval. Minsan kapag medyo sumasobra ako, mas times 2 or times 3 ko yung workload ko So, para, syempre, lahat yan may balik sa atin, diba? So, minsan pwedeng mas nakakahina siya, ganon. So, for me, as long as for me madagdagan ko yung strength and conditioning ko as an athlete, 'di ba? Kahit may mga cheat days, maka-compensate na lang siya dun sa workload na ginagawa ko. 'Di ba? Sacrifices lang. If you eat something that you shouldn't be eating, you have to at least work for it, 'di ba? Para naman ma-balance natin yung life and hindi lang yung parang medyo mahirapan tayo.
Naku, yung paglipad mo sa ibang bansa, sigurado ako maraming masasarap na pwedeng kainin. Ayan, napapikit na si Richie. So, wag mababawasan yung flight time mo. Dapat pag humang time ka, ganun pa rin, Rich. Dahil we'll be rooting for you all the way here from the Philippines. Ikaw ba? Ganyan din. Minsan, marupok din at minsan may cheat day din. Pumapayag ba si daddy niyan?
Siyempre po, dumadaan tayo sa ganyan. Hindi pwedeng hindi. Pero yung sinusure ko sa kanya na pag nag-cheat day ako, kaya kong panindigan. Yun lang yung talagang sa kanya. Na, pero, in the long run, kasi parang na-realize ko din talaga na kailangan talaga yung nutrition. Kasi parang napapansin ko na yung effect sa the way ako maglaro, yung height ng, like, yung talon ko for this game, parang pag nire-replay ko yung mga laro namin, nakikita ko kung saan ako nagkukulang. Kaya, parang sa susunod na mga days or like mga araw na preparation para sa game, yun talaga, pinaghahandaan ko na okay, iinom ako ng tama at saka ititake ko yung mga bagay na at saka mga pagkain na makakatulong sa akin. Kaya yun.
Okay, I like how you answered that. So Rich, dito na tayo. Let's I'll give you a situation. Game day. All right? Hindi siya basta elimination game. Sabihin na nating playoff game or crucial game, knockout game. Richie, ikaw muna. Meron ka bang go-to diet, go-to food that you you prepare or you ask your family to prepare for you a special diet when you go into a particular important game? Meron ka ba sinusunod diyan?
Actually, sa akin, when it comes to games, I treat it as same lang. Kahit
Pare-pareho lang,
may it
okay?
yung mga playoffs or knockout games or finals or things like that. Mas iniisip ko na normal game lang siya for me. Na magpe-prepare ako how I do things, 'di ba? How I am as myself, 'di ba? Prepare ko siya as normal lang. Pero the mindset lang of coming into the game, syempre mas focused, mas into the game ka dun sa game plan, things like that. Mas importante sa akin yung focus ko than dun sa mga kung ano yung gagawin ko. But syempre, most of the time before the game, kailangan yung sinabi rin ni Doc Molly kanina, may carbohydrates intake tayo, 'di ba? And if
Okay.
feel natin mabubusog tayo agad or mabigat sa atin, pwede talaga yung Gatorade kasi it really helps. Ang taas talaga nung nabibigay niya sa body natin for us to perform a lot better than yung usual na kakain lang tayo, 'di ba? Or kung ano man 'yan. Pero meron ako nagcho-chocolate ako every game eh. So,
Yun yung go-to mo. Apart from that, do you have any ritual na meal, 'di ba? Parang sila Michael Jordan, meron silang kinakain na specific. Ikaw ba meron kang
ako
ganyan,
most of
Rich?
the time, pasta. Para mas
Pasta ka,
madali ko siya
okay.
ma-digest. Yeah, and hindi siya ganun kabigat sa
I
stomach.
like that. So you got your pasta, meron ka rin na the chocolate that you eat, and then sabi mo, make sure that you have that Gatorade, no? Para yung carbohydrates also. Yeah, same thing with you. Do you have that type of preparation then ba entering into an important game or into training? Do you follow a particular diet?
Wala naman akong to be honest wala kasi, lagi lang sinasabi ni daddy na, kailangan mo lang kumain ng mabuti para perform ng maayos and, yung energy mo malabas mo sa game. Pero may mga go-to snack lang din ako kunwari, before game, I make sure na
Ah,
parang meron akong banana or fruit tapos i-prepare ko na yon sa Gatorade para, before game hydrated na ako para pagka nag-start na ulit yung warm up, parang okay na yung feeling. Kasi yun yung parang ginagawa ko all throughout lalo na nung last UAP.
so parang lumalabas dito, Rich and Eya, parang mga light eaters kayo, no? Before engaging in a physical
After na
activity or
kami
even
baba.
in your games.
Yeah.
After na, yun yung masarap, 'di ba? Lalo na pag panalo. Kasi pag talo, ang hirap kumain nun. Lungkot, uwi, luhaan. Okay. Um, let's talk dehydration. Rich, si LA kausap namin 2 weeks ago. Isa sa mga sinabi ni LA Tenorio no, known siya as somebody way back in college na hindi nakakatapos ng games dahil pagdating ng mga fourth quarter, pinupulikat na yan sa case of dehydration. For both you and Aya, have you guys ever experienced dehydration during training, during a game? And paano nyo kinounter yon to make sure that hindi na siya mangyari frequently at maging mas tumagal kayo in your respective sports? Richie, I'll start with you.
For sure nangyari naman na 'yan kasi minsan nadadala tayo dun sa hype, 'di ba? Dun sa tension ng games na mas pinipili natin mag-focus, gano'n, mas makinig tayo instead of maglalakad ako, kukuha akong Gatorade or kuha ako ng kung ano man. Minsan nakakalimutan natin 'yan, especially dun sa mga important games, 'di ba? That's why minsan okay pa naman tayo dun sa start, ganyan, pero dun sa latter part ng league or ng games, dun tayo talaga minsan tinatamaan. So, for me, mas siguro growing up, pag pa-mature ka rin ng pa-mature, mas may isip mo din na, wait lang, pwede naman ako nakikinig habang nag-hydrate, di ba? Or pwede namang sandali lang, kahit it won't take 5 to 10 seconds for you to drink, di ba? So,
Aha.
marami ka rin pwedeng gawin while being into the game talaga. So, yun talaga yung proper hydration before. Especially ako, ginagawa ko, especially itong mga previous seasons ko, night before pa lang, gano'n, nag-hydrate na ako. Going into the game, diba? Para before game, hindi mo na kailangan talagang mag-hydrate ng todo. Hindi mabigat sa katawan. Kasi day before pa lang, okay na eh. Medyo nakapag-invest ka na eh. So, dun sa the rest of the game, medyo relax ka na. Kasi at some point, nakapag-invest ka ng hydration eh.
Ganda no nga, yung pag-reinforce mo dun make sure that you're hydrated even before you engage in a game, di ba? Yeah, has that happened to you? Isang laro, bigla na lang, patay, pinupulikat na ako as a case of dehydration. Nangyari ba sa yan in training or even in a game?
Maybe, madalas in training. Pero sa game
In
kasi
training.
parang um, nakaka-adjust na ako sa kung paano ko i-take yung iniinom ko and yung mga kinakain ko. So, parang for me, pag during training, grabe kasi din yung expectations kapag sa drills, ganyan, pinapagawa nila coach. Ako, ang ginagawa ko, pasulpot-sulpot, like, nagtitake ako ng Gatorade para ma-hydrate din ako or pag nagkaroon ng chance na magkaroon kami ng quick break, talagang
Hmm.
sinusulit ko din talaga kasi lalo na sa sports kasi grabe yung expectations sa'yo sa training pa lang para pagdating ng laro, parang kumbaga familiar ka na sa mga gagawin mo during games. So,
Like the way you answered that. Okay. Usapang, kasi di ba, fueling the youth yung ating topic ngayon. Since fueling the youth yan, definitely it always comes into the equation yung impluwensya ng mga magulang. Itong next question ko sa inyo, how, more than how, did you ever convince your parents that you wanted to pursue sports? Or kayo na mismo sila na mismo ang lumapit sa inyo? 'Di ba? Sabi ko nga, more than how did you convince your parents? Siguro I'll attach a secondary question there. How did you convince your parents or did you even uh, need to convince your parents na gusto nyo maglaro ng sports? Rich, I'll start with you.
Sa akin, ang ganda rin actually nung ginawa ni Dad. Hello?
Go ahead,
Clear ba?
Rich. We could hear you.
Sa akin, for me, ang ganda nung ginawa ni Dad. Kasi, mas, alam mo yung sinasama niya lang kami, hindi niya talaga kami pinipili nung mga bata kami. Pero kakanood basketball, ganon, kasama niya sa amin dun sa pag naglalaro sila with friends, ganyan. Na parang napapaisip din kami na nakaka-intriga din siya, diba? At some point, minsan bigla kang kukuha ng bola. Alam mo yung mga bata dyan sa gilid, kukuha ng bola, gano'n. Pag nasa kabilang side yung shoot ka dun sa kabila, yung mga gano'n. Doon lang talaga siya nag-start until sa tulong lang din kasi na magkakalapit yung age gap naming magkakapatid, diba? So, nakakapaglaro talaga kami, nagkakaroon kami ng insights namin, tapos, kamusta yung ganito, nagawa mo ba yung ganito, yung ganyan, things like that. Sobrang laking tulong niya. Kasi meron kang nakakausap na nakakapag-share ka ng experiences mo at the same time, nag-gain ka rin ng kung ano man yung na-experience nila. Diba? Kasi, hindi ka pa ganun ka knowledgeable at first eh. Pero,
Oo.
kapag nakikita kasi ng parents mo na masaya yung mga bata, ganyan, mas bibigyan ka nila ng chance to explore kung ano man yon. Diba? So, syempre, kay Dad, basketball, yun yung gusto niyang sport ever since.
Uh-huh.
Siguro, mas sinuportahan niya din kami kasi natuwa siya siguro, diba, na yung mga laro din,
Yeah.
na-enjoy nila, and sobrang laki tulong if you're an athlete kasi sobrang dami niyang matutulong sa isang tao, hindi lang pagiging athlete, di ba?
Ganda ron natural lang yung flow sa side mo. On your end, kinailangan mo pa bang i-convince yung parents mo or may ganong experience ka rin kay Richie na natural lang yung naging um, pagiging atleta mo?
I think parang same na din kami ni Ricci kasi magkakilala na din yung daddy namin eh. So I think parang same story na lang din. Pero yung sa akin naman, syempre si daddy nung naglalaro kasi siya sa PBA nun, like lagi kaming nanonood. So nandun na din yung parang, ay parang gusto ko yan itry. So nandun naman si daddy every after training niya sa PBA team, parang magkakaroon kami ng bonding session yan na, okay, punta tayo sa labas, and then mag-court tayo, maglaro tayo ng basketball. So, doon siya nagsimula. Parang naging smooth na lang talaga siya hanggang sa ate ko, yung brother ko, nakakalaro na din namin siya. Parang nag-transition na lang nung kailan lang, nung nag-UST na ako. Nung nag-start na ako mag-training for UST. Parang doon na lang naging volleyball na yung naging namin, bonding, imbis na basketball.
Ganda, no? So pareho-pareho din na because of the influence of your respective parents. Okay, we're down to our last question, guys. And in this last question, undoubtedly, the two of you are athletes na tinitingala ng kabataan ngayon, and I tip my hat off to your parents for doing an awesome job in raising you, Richie, into a good athlete. Ikaw din a good athlete and a good role model sa mga young athletes natin who'd like to follow your footsteps. Would like to hear from you guys for the last question. Ano yung mga values na na-form ninyo, natutunan ninyo na through the sport that you've chosen? Okay, na baka pwede nyong i-share sa mga young viewers natin na matutunan din nila, isabuhay din nila. Richie, I'll start with you.
For me, mas napadali yung sa akin because siguro kaka-try kong tignan yung mga bagay-bagay, i-match, parang nag-mix and match ako ng bagay-bagay na sa buhay, paano ba siya kapag nasa basketball court ka, paano ba siya, di ba, minsan pag yung sa mga ibang events or tapings, ganyan, paano ba siya. And doon ko siya na ma-match na you have to look at people evenly, 'di ba? Na kunyari, yung coaches mo, they're your parents, 'di ba? They're the ones who will guide you throughout the game or the practice, 'di ba? Kasi hindi naman magsasabi yan ng bagay na ikakasama mo 'di ba? So, first is you really have to listen, 'di ba? And you have to believe in what they're saying, 'di ba? Things like that, doon kasi siya mag-start para magiging responsible ka na rin, not just for yourself, but syempre, for example, pag mga naging team captain or kung ano man yan, magiging responsible ka na rin sa team, sa teammates mo, or minsan, maging responsible ka lang dun sa ginagawa mo, maging accountable ka, maging reflect din kasi siya sa team di ba, na, oy, si ganito ng team, blah, 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 things like that. So, sobrang laking tulong nung mga little things na yon sa buhay natin, pero na-apply natin siya everyday. Hindi lang siya basta sa basketball court, hindi lang siya basta sa bahay, pero pag kahit nasaan tayo, 'di ba? Yung mga values na yan, yung mga dadalhin natin forever, and sana may pasa din natin dun sa mga bata, 'di ba? Especially sa mga nanonood, dun sa mga nai-inspire, dun sa stories, dun sa kung sino mang tao. Sobrang nakakatuwa kasi kapag nakakita ka ng tao na, alam mo yun, na napapabuti mo siya in a way na alam mong tama. Diba? So, yung mga maliliit na bagay na yun, yung respeto lang sa kapwa, ganyan, yung responsibility mo as a person, as a son for me, as a friend to others, as a brother to my brothers, diba? Tapos yung mga, syempre yung discipline natin, diba? Kasi mag-reflect din siya dun sa everyday life din natin, kung paano tayo magiging bukas, diba? Or the next day, or the next week, or next month, diba? Mag-start din siya dun sa little things na discipline natin. So, yung mga little things talaga, it will really pile up at some point na madadala natin siya, na magugulat tayo, grabe, ang laki pala ng difference kung ginawa ko tong mga to. So, for me,
Love it.
Everything will really help you. Yung mga maliliit na values na ganyan, sobrang laking tulong niya sa tao, hindi lang sa pagiging athlete.
I like what you mentioned there. Respect, be a good follower in order to be a good leader. And hopefully it trickles down to the young ones. Ikaw naman, ano yung mga values that you live by, that you formed through sports na gumagabay sa'yo into becoming a level-headed athlete? And at the same time, isang magandang ehemplo para sa mga kabataan?
Of course, isa na din siguro doon, Tita Chicks, yung hindi ka napupuno. Parang kumbaga isang baso na kailangan hindi ka napupuno. Ready ka mag-absorb ng mga instructions, ready ka mag-absorb ng mga advices, hindi ka, kumbaga kahit alam mong isa ka sa mga magagaling na athletes, hindi ka yung parang, ay, ayoko na makinig. Siguro isa
Mm-mm.
yan sa mga values and na talagang dinadala ko and in-instill din ng daddy ko sa akin. Since sabi ko nga, ilang years din si daddy sa professional basketball. Siyempre nagtataka
That's
din
right.
ako minsan, paano ba siya nagtagal ng ganon katagal? Parang ano
Oo.
ba yung isang bagay na ikinatagal niya? And isa yon sa sinasabi niya sa akin lagi. Kahit na anong mangyari sa training, kahit alam mo na isa ka sa mga leader sa team mo, kailangan matuto ka din talagang makinig sa coaches, sa teammates, or kahit sino pa yan. Para syempre, di ba, yung relationship mo din with everyone is healthy. Kaya, ayun po.
Ganda ng shinare mo, humility, 'di ba? Having that humility that you are always learning as you grow older. And I think that is a good reflection of who your dad is, no? Kung paano si Eddie naglaro. And I'm sure your dad is smiling right now knowing na natutunan mo lahat 'yan. Last na lang, quick fire to, quick fire. Top of mind, Richie, top of mind, the youth would like to hear tips before your parting shots. Tips muna para sa mga budding athletes out there. Richie, ikaw muna. Anong mga tips na pwede mo i-share sa mga atleta to be
For
a better
me,
athlete?
you have to really like or want what you're doing. Kasi if hindi mo siya magugustuhan, if hindi mo siya na-enjoy, mahirap siyang gawin. Mahirap mag-exert ng effort, mahirap maglagay ng sacrifices dun sa bagay na hindi mo gusto. 'Di ba? So, okay lang yung minsan na nakakatamad, pero alam mong gusto mo siya sa sarili mo. 'Di ba? Kasi, ano yun eh, 'di ba? Human nature yun. So, for me, kailangan una magustuhan mo kung ano yung ginagawa mo. Next is if you really want it, you devote yourself into it, 'di ba? Your time, your strength, 'di ba? You prepare for it. Hindi yung pupunta ka lang diyan, pagod ako kanina kaya ito lang yung magagawa ko. Dapat nag-prepare ka pa rin before that. Kung alam mo may gagawin ka before or may gagawin ka after, para magawa mo pa rin siya ng tama. And ando doon pa rin yung focus mo, 'di ba? And yung strength mo na magawa mo pa rin yung bagay-bagay ng tama. And you really have to set aside din kung ano man yung nasa court lang, but really yung mentally for me, kasi yun, parang yung kanina pinag-usapan natin dun sa values, sobrang laking tulong niya sa pagiging athlete, kasi sobrang laking impact niya sa pagiging athlete, na yung minsan there are people who, syempre yung mga coaches minsan mapapasigaw yan, 'di ba? Minsan may mga hindi okay na masasabi yan, pero it doesn't necessarily mean na yun yung gusto nilang iparating sa'yo. Diba? But, syempre, focus on the message that they're trying to tell you, or kung ano man yung gusto nilang iparating sa'yo. Kasi, for sure, hindi tayo lahat perfect. And may mga kailangan talaga tayong marinig. Minsan nga kahit alam na natin, diba? Kailangan mapaalala pa rin sa atin na parang, uy, oo nga na-miss out ko nga yung point na yan. So yung mga ganong little things, sobrang laking tulong niya. 'Di ba? Makinig tayo sa teammates natin, kahit pa maging star player ka man or kung ano man yan, minsan may makikita pa rin sila kasi iba yung perspective nila from the bleachers, siguro from the bench, from dun sa other side ng court. Pwedeng iba-iba yung perspective nyo na hindi mo lang siya nakita, 'di ba? So, things like that, yun talaga, listening, you have to follow, learn how to follow, devote yourself into it. and you have to really want it.
Well said. Well said, Rich. I like how you put it, pagkakalatag mo dun. Eya, how about you? Anong tip mo sa mga young athletes natin out there?
Siguro, sabi naman na din ng mga speakers natin kanina, which is stay disciplined, and kahit anong mangyari, you have to have a balanced life din talaga. And of course, sa mga student athletes na katulad ko, syempre kailangan yung matutunan na mag-manage ng time well. And matututunan
Hmm.
niyo yan hanggang, parang sa pagsimula nyo na ipagsabay yung pagiging student and yung pagiging athlete, mag-aral ng mabuti kasi syempre, kundi naman dahil sa pag-aaral, yan din talaga ang pinaka-importante, 'di ba? Yan nga ang ginawang key sa akin ng daddy ko kaya kaya yun din talaga yung parang ginawa niyang challenge sa akin para makalaro. Kaya isa
Ah.
din talaga yan na mag-aral ng mabuti. And then, syempre, sleep ng maaga. Because,
Mm-mm.
yan, kailangan wag natin abusuhin yung katawan natin. Kasi syempre, kung gusto natin maglaro ng matagal na panahon, kailangan hindi natin sanayin yung katawan natin na magpuyat, example. So, isa yun. And of course, to eat healthy, of course. And syempre, meron pa ding cheat day. Wag pa din tatanggalin yung cheat day. Pero kailangan yung tama lang. So,
I like
ayun
that.
po.
Real talk. Real talk. I like that. I like that. Okay. Gosh, gusto ko pang makipagkwentuhan sa inyo, but unfortunately, we got two more segments. We got a nice special interview with our NBA guest, and then meron pa tayong pa-trivia question, no, to give prizes to our viewers bago tayo matapos yung show. So, I'm gonna let you guys go. But before I let you go, quickly, Richie and Aya, your parting message sa mga fans ninyo. Also, a good way to invite them to support you in the next chapter of your respective sporting careers. Richie, unahin na kita.
First of all, syempre, gusto ko mag-thank you sa Gatorade for making this happen, 'di ba? For me, sobrang nakakataba siya ng puso na ma-interview ng ganitong ways, 'di ba? Tapos makapag-share tayo sa iba, especially the youth, 'di ba, na gusto or aspiring athletes, 'di ba, na gustong mag-start or gustong mapahaba pa or paano pa mag-improve. Sobrang laking chance na binigay niyo sa amin. 'Di ba? Ang daming athletes diyan na pwedeng nasama dito, but choosing us, me, sobrang thank you Gatorade for making this happen. Next is you guys. Cute Cheeks, all the staff, and syempre din sa mga nanonood, 'di ba? Sobrang thank you guys for being here, for allotting your time, 'di ba, na makinig sa amin. Sana naniwala din kayo sa sinabi namin, 'di ba? Pero sobrang sobrang thank you talaga. Hindi hindi biro na may nakikita kang nakikinig sa 'di ba? So for me, sobrang thank you. Also, ayun lang, sana natutunan nyo, may mga natutunan kayo dun sa mga sinabi namin. Kasi based naman yan sa experience and hindi rin naman namin sasabihin yung mga bagay-bagay na ikakasama ng isang tao, diba? Or ng kapwa namin athletes, diba? So, mag-iingat kayo guys palagi. Sobrang thank you. Miss ko mag-Tagalog syempre kasi palis na ako. Kaya yung mga ibang ano ko talaga tinatagalog ko na lang. Kasi hindi ako magtatagalog dun, magcha-Chinese ata ako dun eh. So yun, ingat kayo guys, sobra. Thank you, thank you. Ingat po kayo. God bless everyone.
Thanks, Rich. Huwag ka muna umalis. We'll go to Aya muna. Aya, ikaw naman, maraming natuwa doon sa huling sinabi mo kanina, no, about pero pwede pa rin mag-cheat, no? Natawa sila ng tawa dito. Uh, but
Para
kidding aside,
balance lang.
Aya, ikaw naman, final message mo and a chance to invite your fans to continue supporting you and your team and your favorite sport, volleyball. Go ahead, Aya.
Yes, una po sa lahat, thank you po Gatorade family, to the Chicks, and for inviting us. Syempre kasi isa to sa mga inaabangan ko din. Kasi syempre, isa sa mga inspiration for me, yung mga nai-inspire ko din na tao. Yung alam kong nakaka-inspire ako na tao. Parang yun yung nagkikip sa akin na kailangan mas galingan ko pa sa susunod. Parang ganun. So, thank you so much. And sa mga viewers natin, thank you sa inyong time. And sana talaga, sabi nga ni Ricci kanina, sana may natutunan kayo at lahat naman ng sinabi namin ay totoo. At of course, makakatulong yan sa inyo guys, lalo na sa mga aspiring young athletes And of course, syempre, lahat ng nag-support sa amin sa UST Growling Tigresses. Ayan, see you sa mga susunod naming tournaments, and of course, wear yellow. Yun na talaga. Para sa last season ko, wear yellow.
Mga kaibigan, mga
Yes.
kapatid, palakpakan po natin Ricci Rivero and Laure. Thank you very much. Good luck in your respective careers, sporting careers, and personal lives also. Richie, sa pagbiyahe mo, stay safe, safe travels, and uh, we're very proud that you'll be representing us in another country. At sa'yo naman, sana mag-heal ka sa iyong injury at yung rehab mo. Maganda ang kalabsan because we want to see you hit that hardcore again and play in front of your limpak-limpak ng mga fans dyan, ha? So guys, palakpakan natin. Ricci Rivero, Laure, thank you guys and have a good dinner. We'll see you guys soon, okay? So, di pa ho tapos ang ating palabas. May 2 segments pa ho tayo. We got this nice interview. I'm gonna usher that in soon. Then after that, meron tayong trivia. 8 questions, 8 winners will bring home cool stuff from Gatorade. And then after that, that certificate of attendance. Kaya wag muna kayong aalis. Wag muna kayong aalis. Because up next, for a final segment, as mentioned, binisita tayo sa ating home court sa Gatorade Hoop Center ng isang kilala sa NBA, National Basketball Association, as one of the defensive specialists na batang-bata pa. No? He was drafted actually 2021 in the second round. And he is playing for the New Orleans Pelicans. Skills on court niya brought about the catchphrase, not on Herb. And talaga nga naman, his defense, his game, does the talking for him. And I had the chance to interview him in the Gatorade Hoop Center a couple of days back. So I hope you like it. Here you go, our Gatorade exclusive interview with Herb Jones. Watch this. Basketball fans, NBA fans, Filipino fans, welcome to our Gatorade exclusive interview. My name is Chicky Reyes and I'll be with you for our special episode today. And we're very thankful that we have a very young NBA star to join us here in our home court, the Gatorade Hoops Center. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to be asking him some questions. Questions coming from you guys, the Filipino fans, so that we'll get to know him better. So without any further ado, we got Herb Jones! Woohoo! How you doing? Oh, oh, oh.
Yeah.
How are you doing, Herb?
I'm good. Doing good.
So, are you okay to go with our interview?
You know it.
All right, here we go, here we go. So question number 1. We always want to ask our guests from the NBA how you stay in shape.
I work hard in the off season. I do a ton of cardio. I'm trying to lift a lot. I've been trying to, get my movements a lot stronger and quicker. Like I said, working on my shot a ton, catch and shoot and off the dribble. I think it would just open up another dimension to my game because I'm kind of known as a driver. And so if I, got the shooting aspect of things down, then it would just make my game a lot easier and a lot more lethal. And still maintaining like my rest regimen. I'm trying to get the right amount of sleep, eat the right foods, just stay in great shape going into training camp.
At what age did you start loving basketball? When you found out that, hey, you know what? I love this sport and I want to make it to the NBA.
It wasn't necessarily a day where I came home and was like, oh, I love basketball. Because me and my brother, we grew up, we played multiple sports. And so whatever sport we were playing at that time, that was what I was solely focused on. And I don't think I've ever had my goals set on making it to the NBA. I just tried to maximize each opportunity I had in whatever situation. So in high school, I just worked as hard as I could to, I guess, help my teammates, be better and win games. Never wanted the credit. I just wanted my teammates and the people around me to do great.
You let your game do the talking, right?
Yeah, I tried to.
Okay, now, all of us at one point, we were kids, we tried to emulate, to be the player that we look up to. We're interested to find out, for a young NBA star like Herb Jones, who is your basketball idol? Who do you look up to, even before you hit the NBA?
I would have to say LeBron. I studied a ton of his game. Tony Allen, I watched a ton of his game. I like taking bits and pieces from a lot of players' game and not just study one person and try to be just like one person. I try to take bits and pieces from a lot of guys' game.
What would be your message to the Filipino youth and even other players from other countries, the young ones watching us right now, who would like to have that chance, whether to make it to the varsity, make it to the college team, make it to the NBA or the PBA, in our case, what would be your advice to them?
You just have to put in the work, and you can't cheat it. It will always show. So I'll just say to continue to keep working hard. Don't worry about the Instagram likes or who wants the most views on the social media. Just continue to fall in love with the grind, and continue to work hard and believe in yourself.
There's no shortcut, right?
Not
No
at all.
shortcut. You gotta work hard for it.
Yes,
And
sir.
I think you did. You've done your part, and that's why you're here.
Yes, sir.
So, Herb, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And this time, I'm shaking your hand, not
Yes,
a
sir.
fist
It's
bump.
all right.
Thank you very much for fueling our youth.
Thank you.
Thank you for visiting Manila in the Philippines.
Thank you for having me.
Boom. And yes, I was a lucky guy that day because it was fun talking to Herb Jones. Truly an inspiration para po sa mga kabataan natin. So I hope you like that special interview. And now we move on to our last part. Okay, last part, which is trivia part na. So if you listened earlier on sa mga presenters natin and you took down notes, I'm going to be asking 8 questions and we have 8 lucky winners of the Gatorade shirt, this very nice pair of socks from Gatorade. Ganda yan, ito yung uso. Medyo mahaba. The squeeze bottle for those of you doing trainings, cycling, running, pwede to. It's easy to hold, easy to carry. All put in this nice Gatorade backpack. Okay, so 8 trivia questions will be showing on the screen, and our social media team will be taking note of the lucky winners and we will message you privately. I repeat, we will message you privately kung kayo po yung nanalo. Paunahan po ito, the first 2 answers. So please do check your messages to find out if you are the winner, one of the 8 winners. Okay, so question number 1 that we're going to show on our screens. Here we go. Which gender is at risk of iron deficiency due to high iron turnover? Type away. Go. Type away in the comment section down there. Unang makasagot will be chosen by our social media team. Once again, which gender is at risk of iron deficiency due to high iron turnover? Go. Type. Okay. So we'll wait for a few. And then I move on to the next question. Next question. Number 2. We're going to show on the screen. What macronutrient is highest during childhood or adolescence? I repeat, what micronutrient is highest during childhood or adolescence? Type away. Let's go. Sayang ang mga goodies from Gatorade. Okay? I move on to question number 3. Simple lang to. True or false? Intermittent drinking periods should be enforced only when adolescents are thirsty. I repeat, intermittent drinking periods should be enforced only when adolescents are thirsty. That's question number 3. Okay? We go up to question number 4. What maintains body hydration composition and promotes recovery? What maintains body hydration composition and promotes recovery? Go, type away. Go ahead. I go to question number 5. We go back to true or false. Sports for adolescents have physiological, sociological, and psychological benefits. One more time. Sports for adolescents have physiological, sociological, and psychological benefits. True or false? We go to question number 6. Another true or false question. Number 6. Okay, true or false? Adequate energy intake during adolescence is vital to support normal growth and extra energy needs for training. Let me say that again. Adequate energy intake during adolescence is vital to support normal growth and extra energy needs for training. True or false? That's number 6. We go number 7. What is the first step in achieving a goal or to achieving a goal? What is that first step to achieve a goal? Type away, guys. Type away. Sayang yung t-shirt, socks, bottle, and bag from Gatorade. And our last question, fill in the blank. Confidence can be gained during blank as it gives you scenarios to draw strength and examples from. I repeat, confidence can be gained during blank as it gives you scenarios to draw strength and examples from. Type away, guys! So again, our social media team will be taking note of the winners and will message you privately. So please check your messages para po malaman ninyo if you are one of the 8 lucky winners. So thank you to all those who participated in our trivia game. Right? So again, mamaya-maya ilalabas po natin ang ating QR code. In the meantime, stay tuned for our next one. 2 weeks po tayo mamamahinga. Our third class, our third session will be on September 15 because ang topic natin dyan, okay, the female athlete. We got our women in sports, a female athlete, September 15 to 4 p.m. pa rin po. Okay, we got our guests there. We got Christine Warren, Dr. Sam Moss, we got Eliza Valdez, and Micaela Belen. Okay, ladies, female, girl power on September 15. We'll be discussing nutrition, hydration, and custom training for the female athlete. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you so much for attending our second leg of our GSSI webinars. Woo-hoo! And for those of you who stayed until the end, please scan the QR code that we will be flashing on your screens so you can claim a certificate of participation from our experts and friends from Gatorade Sports Science Institute. Okay? Take note that this will only be accessible for a very limited time. Thus, when this live video ends, make sure that you access or you scan that QR code and then that registration link immediately when you see that QR code. May quick survey din yan, ha? Do that because after this, mawawala na yung QR code na yan. So on behalf of Ms. Melai, Sir Mikey, Tammy, Cedric, and the rest of our GSSI Webinar Series 2022 team, my name is Chicky Brother Bengarea saying thank you guys. Good night. See you on September 15 for our Class 3, the female athlete. Paalam, stay safe, enjoy dinner, and we'll see you soon. Woo-hoo!